This is a quick video about one of the very common ways that people cause themselves anxiety. In the world of personal development, we're continually hearing lots of sound bites and lots of quotes and things that sound really good. A couple of little bits of food for thought for you when you do hear something that really sounds good to you. First of all, ask yourself the question, why does this particular thing resonate with me? What is the message that this is giving me? Just asking yourself that question will give you lots and lots of valuable information. The second thing is remember that very few things in life are universally true. So when we hear these things that sound great, you must apply critical thinking to them and ask yourself, when is this true and when is it not true? Because if we don't do that, all that we're doing is blindly accepting what other people are telling us, and in some ways then we know better off than people who are not engaged in personal development. One of these sound bites that I've heard a lot recently goes something along the lines of, what holds people back is not what they think about themselves, it's not what other people think about them, it's what they think that other people are thinking about them that holds them back. Now, let's look at that. Let's just apply that rule of critical thinking. Firstly, it's not universally true. It is important what we think about ourselves. It's what creates our self-image and our self-belief. It is important what other people think of us, because if everybody in the world thinks we're a jerk, we're not going to get on very far in life. But the third part, there's a lot of wisdom in there. It is what we're thinking that other people are thinking about us that often creates anxiety for people. This was highlighted for me recently in a coaching call. I was talking to a person who is a senior manager in a large company, very good at what they do, very knowledgeable about what they do, and ordinarily a very confident person and very good at speaking in front of groups of people. Now, because of how good they are at their job, they get invited to industry forums with people from other organisations as well. And the question was, why is it that in that situation I get tense, and because of that I don't speak as well as I can do, I don't tend to think clearly, and I don't come up with the quality of answers that I know that I'm capable of. That's very common, and it's something that many people will recognise. The first part of it is very easy to answer. The reason they're not thinking clearly is because they've become tense. The more tense that we become, the less clearly we can think. But the question then becomes, why is it they're becoming tense in the first place? When we unpack this, there's a lot going on under the surface. I'm not going to go through all the details, but let's have a look at some of the headlines. What was happening, before the person spoke, they were spending a few minutes thinking about what they were going to say. And that's the first red flag, because that's not how we communicate in most situations. What we do in most conversations is we listen, and then we respond to what we've heard, and then we listen more and we respond to that. And when you think about it, we're very comfortable doing that, and very often you don't even know what you're going to say, but if you know your stuff, the right thing just tends to come out of your mouth. As soon as you start thinking about what you're going to say, you've broken that communication loop. You're no longer listening to what's being said right now, and when you finally do respond, you're responding to something that happened maybe a minute ago or 2 minutes ago. So that normal communication loop that works so well is just not in place at the moment. You might recognise this pattern of behaviour. It's very common in meetings, networking events, that kind of stuff, but it's not a helpful pattern. Where it gets really interesting is where we ask the next question of, why does this happen? Why is it that in certain situations we feel the need to formulate answers before we give them? One of the most common reasons this happens is because we're thinking about what the other person might be thinking about us. What if we stumble over our words? What if we say something that's not 100% correct? Well, guess what? Most of the time, whatever comes out of your mouth will be perfectly adequate. And if it's not, what do you do in everyday conversation? If you say something that's not quite right, something you didn't quite mean, you say something else and you correct it again. But for some reason, in certain situations, when we're worried about how we might be perceived, we feel the need that we've got to be perfect first time. And as soon as we do that, we limit our natural ability to communicate well. In this particular case, the penny dropped when I asked the question, do other people at the meeting ever stumble across their words? Yeah, of course they do. Do other people at the meeting ever say something that's not quite correct? Yeah, of course they do. And what do you think about them when they do? Well, they're human. We all make mistakes from time to time. None of us are perfect. Fantastic. So if that's what you're thinking about them, what might they be thinking about you? And suddenly the penny dropped. That people are probably not, most of the time, judging you on how perfect the words are that come out of your mouth. Most of the time they don't care. They're too busy thinking about what they're going to say. But while we're busy worrying about what they might be thinking about us, we're limiting our own ability to perform. So going back to the quote from earlier on, it's not what we're thinking about ourselves at that particular moment. It's not even what other people are actually thinking about us. What is causing the problem, what's causing the anxiety, is what we think that they might be thinking about us. In this particular case, the penny dropped when I asked the question, do other people at the meeting ever stumble across their words? Yeah, of course they do. Do other people at the meeting ever say something that's not quite correct? Yeah, of course they do. And what do you think about them when they do? Well, they're human. We all make mistakes from time to time. None of us are perfect. Fantastic. So if that's what you're thinking about them, what might they be thinking about you? And suddenly the penny dropped. That people are probably not, most of the time, judging you on how perfect the words are that come out of your mouth. Most of the time they don't care. They're too busy thinking about what they're going to say. But while we're busy worrying about what they might be thinking about us, we're limiting our own ability to perform. So going back to the quote from earlier on, it's not what we're thinking about ourselves at that particular moment. It's not even what other people are actually thinking about us. What is causing the problem, what's causing the anxiety, is what we think that they might be thinking about us. A couple of simple steps that you can take if you find this happening to you. As soon as you notice that you're preparing for what you're going to say, just stop. Get yourself back into that loop of listening and responding. And while you're doing that, while you're listening, you haven't got time to worry and think about what other people are thinking about you. The second thing to remember is anything that you think that they might be thinking about you isn't real, you've just made it up. And if you can make that up, why not make up something that's more useful instead?